We appreciate you wanting to find out more about raindrop therapy. And you're about to hear the story of Anne. I first met Anne on a hiking trip to Utah, and she was the first person up the mountain. And when she came down, she told me her story, and I could not believe it. And she credits coming out of what she came out of to raindrop therapy. So we hope you enjoy her story. And if you want to find out more about Raindrop, email us info@essentialoilworks.com.
My story begins, I guess, when I was 5. I wanted to be an Army nurse, a wife, and a mom, and I eventually got there. I joined the Army when I was 28 and started having issues during basic training and at officer candidate school, and then during various field trainings that I had. I remember one time in Korea, I was running and my feet started going numb after a mile and a half, and I just couldn't understand what was going on. Well, then during pre mobilization for Iraq, I busted both my ankles. That was also unusual. And then I started having reactions to different medicines that I was taking. So, went to Iraq, and while I was there, I just realized I couldn't use air conditioning. So, I just used a fan the entire time, and they called my office Club Sauna, which was kind of funny. And so, I get back, I started having more issues with my feet. They were starting to go numb more and more and more. And then I went to grad school and I failed my first set of comprehensive exams. And that was kind of shocking. I was the best briefer in the class and just could not understand why I couldn't pass. I was looking at the test questions and just thinking, I know how to answer this, but I don't know how to put it down on paper. So my dad told me to rest, study, and then take the exams again. So I took them again, passed them, and then was assigned to an Army unit in Washington, D.C. And I kept falling asleep at my desk every afternoon. And I just couldn't understand what was going on. And it was a pretty boring job. And so I thought, well, maybe because it's boring, that's why I'm falling asleep. And it'd just be for like a brief moment or two. It wouldn't be for very long. And then I got pulled off onto the Snowden task force. So as the Army operations officer, identifying the threat of the material that he took to all of our Army equities. That was a very intense job. It was 15 to 18 hours a day. And all of a sudden, I started seeing limitations that I hadn't had since grad school. And I just dismissed it because, it was just the job. I was just really, really tired. Then it got to the point where I remember asking my boss, I need an Aaron. Like Moses in the Bible, he told God he couldn't speak. And so God sent him Aaron to speak for him. And so I kept saying, I need an Aaron because I couldn't articulate what I was seeing in my head anymore. Then eventually it got to the point where I was having some severe headaches and just couldn't see straight. And I was having at least 2 Cokes a day. My gut health was terrible. And I knew that something would have to give soon, but this was a pressing issue for the United States, so it had to get done. And I just kept pressing on. And I had an argument with my brother, and I felt something click off in my brain. The next day I woke up and I had lost my peripheral vision. And I went to the clinic and I said, I think I had a stroke. They didn't believe me. They said, oh, it's just stress. Go see behavioral health. And they wouldn't believe me, wouldn't believe me. I kept having these mini heart attacks. I'd go to the ER every single time. And they finally told me, don't come back unless it's sustained. It was sustained. So I kept going back. And I remember driving on the GW Parkway one day. And all of a sudden I stopped and I was doubled over on the steering wheel and I just couldn't breathe. So I limped along to the ER and I checked myself in and I was like, I can't breathe. I can't move. I've got headaches. And they said, well, it's still just stress. Go see behavioral health. You're in a very stressful job. And I said, well, yes, I am, but this is not how my body manifests stress. I know how it does that. I've been up for 72 hours before straight. This is not how my body manifests stress. So there came a point where I had to stop driving. My fellow major was driving me back and forth to work every day. And then my dad ended up dying. And then right after his funeral, because I had to help mom plan the funeral, I had about a week. And then I was supposed to fly back to DC and then go run a half marathon in Ireland. And I just felt all this pressure in my head. And I said, I can't fly. My head's going to burst open. So I finally got in touch with TRICARE and said, I need an MRI of my brain. That's the only way I can tell if this stroke really happened or not, because my mom had had a stroke and she lost her peripheral vision. And so that's the only way they found it was by taking an MRI. And so they finally let me do it, but I had to pay out of pocket first. And so then the doctor examined me. He goes, "I think you have an ocular clot. You definitely need a brain MRI. Start." And I said, "Thank God somebody believes me." And so went and had the MRI. They called me back and said, "You need to go to the ER. You either have parasite." And I said, "Well, that's possible. I was in Brazil last year in the water. That's not a no-brainer." He goes, "Or you have MS. Do you have MS in your family?" I said, "No, I don't even know what it is." And he said, and he said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Yes, but go ahead and just say it." And he goes, "Or you have lymphoma." And I said, "Well, they can cut it out." And he said, "Well, you need to go to the ER." So I went to the ER. They didn't believe me. And they said, "He doesn't have admitting privileges here. You'll have to wait." So my sister and I waited. I had my little suitcase next to me because I knew I'd be in there for a while if I really was that sick. And then all of a sudden, it was like vultures descended on me, and they wheeled me back. And then they took me back for a brain MRI, spinal MRIs, spinal tap, and then they admitted me to med surge and said, "Oh, you have MS and you've had it for over 10 years." And I thought, what on earth? I was sitting there thinking, like, what is this? And I couldn't ask dad. He was gone. And so dad fixes everything. So anyway, I just said, "All right, God, um, I don't know what this is. You're gonna have to fix this. There's nobody who can do it other than you. So just I don't know. I don't know if I should ask for healing." And then immediately Solomon came to mind. I said, "You know what? Just give me wisdom. You fix it. Just don't let me give up my Colorado lifestyle. I need my Jeep and my mountains." And I said, "But you fix it and give me wisdom to know what to do." So anyway, then because I was getting allergic to all the meds they gave me, like Flagyl, made my tongue swell up, Oxy, I was hanging over the toilet, Barbitol, severe headaches. No migraine medicine would touch it. It was only morphine. And then they had me on steroids too. I mean, it was just one thing after another, and it was just my body was just feeling ravaged. When I was in the hospital, I started looking up all the medicine ingredients, and I noticed this common thread that all of them had a plant base. God designed everything. I was in Iraq in the middle of the Garden of Eden, and I had a lot of time to think about where we came from. And so I was thinking, what if I just take plants themselves, all these herbs? What if they're more potent? So I got on my little computer that I brought with me, and I started saying, "Hey, Facebook oily peeps, talk to me. Tell me about these things." So finally, a college friend who's now my sponsor got back to me, and told me about these things, and I'm super skeptical, right? So I said, "Well, let me just research it." So this was July, and when I was back home, I got a massage with essential oils, and it was like I could not get away from her fast enough. The lavender and the peppermint she used just made my skin crawl and made me so nauseous. And I thought, well, I thought these things are supposed to help. So eventually I get back to DC. I'm on quarters, which means I'm homebound for about a month. And then Jan keeps contacting me and saying, "Come to my class on oils." And I said, "Okay, well, I just need to see a little bit more about it." And so I started researching doTERRA and Ziza. They have oils, and then the Young Living. And then I went to Jan's class, and she was talking about how they did seed to seal. Well, this pricked my interest because I was in the global supply area when I was in Iraq, and global supply chain is extremely important. It's interconnected, with shipping, and there's a seamless flow, and it has to happen all on time for it to work properly. Since we're global now. And when she started talking about the seed to seal and how they control the process from planting to distribution, I knew that that was really important because chain of custody is always important. And especially since I had high levels of toxicity of heavy metals and I had mold issues and I had medical issues, I thought this is going to be really important because whatever this is, I'm going to have to ingest it. Not every herb, but I'm going to have to ingest some of these. And I need to know that they're pure and untainted. And then she talked about how just that year they had thrown out $1 million worth of blue tansy because it had traces of lead in it. And so Gary Young didn't try to resell it. He just pitched it. And I thought, you know what? Any company that's voluntarily willing to lose $1 million in profit is a company with integrity. So I wasn't going to sign up that day at all. And then I ended up signing up with her. And I thought, well, this is a company that I need to really invest in. And then she said, go get a Raindrop. I think that'll really help you. Now at this point, I was still having these massive headaches. And prednisone would make them go away. prednisone isn't good for folks with autoimmunes. You're supposed to stay away from live vaccines and all steroids. And so I started researching, um, this raindrop massage technique. And I'd been seeing an upper cervical chiropractor in Kentucky, and I asked them about it, and they said, well, I mean, I have a PhD in neurology, and those things would help. It would help with nerve flow, possibly. I mean, oregano has oxygenating effects on the cell, so possibly. So anyway, I went and had this raindrop from this gal, but the first time she gave it to me, I walked out of there. I kind of stumbled out of there. I felt drunk. But within an hour, all of my neural headaches, migraine medicine would not touch, only morphine, was gone. It was gone within an hour. And it lasted for about a week. And I had made appointments to see her like every other week. And so eventually I was sitting there thinking like, I wonder if I'm taking like 2 steps forward and 1 step back by not doing it every week. And at the same time, it was different than that massage I'd gotten back in August. It was like my skin was drinking in these oils. I could not get enough of them. And I knew that was the difference between my massage therapist who had store-bought oils and these Young Living oils. And so I started deciding, like, okay, maybe I should go to her every week. Well, that's when I started seeing rapid progress. I had high Epstein-Barr viral overload in my body. And as I researched what these oils did, these oils are antiviral. Then I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia as well. And my rheumatologist said, I'm not going to give you medicine. There's no efficacy in them. And so as I researched all of these things, it started coalescing in my mind. And I started realizing that, okay, if viruses like to reside along the spinal ganglia, these oils are going along the spinal ganglia and they're seeping into my cerebral spinal fluid. The cerebral spinal fluid is washing up over your brainstem every 12 to 24 hours. And any mom who's had a spinal tap, an epidural, understands this, right? And you understand the pain afterwards as well, and the spinal tap headache that you can get. So when you can understand that flow repopulating in your body, and then you can say, all right, these oils that feel so good on my back are now seeping into my cerebral spinal fluid, going up, washing over that brainstem, breaking that blood-brain barrier, was doing something to my body. And so I had started taking Ningxia Red along with it. And after my fibromyalgia diagnosis, I bumped everything up to double. So I was taking 4 ounces of Ningxia Red a day, started Progestins Plus, and then I was doing a raindrop a week. And within 3 years, I saw all of my symptoms go away. And so it wasn't that, I saw progress happening. I saw the negative. I saw things disappearing. And so that's equally as important as positive progress, right? The absence of symptoms. And so I praise God for putting the right people at the right place at the right time in my life to do this, but He fixed it. And I'm not healed of MS. I may or may not have relapses, but I know that what I did put my body back into balance. And that's what homeostasis is, right? That's what medicine is. You're trying to get the body back into balance. And it's the same thing that God is trying to do with us. He put us in the garden, we sinned. Now he sent Jesus and he's trying to get us back into balance with him. So everything has patterns. So it puts my body back into balance. Now I have a responsibility along with these modalities to get my life back on track. So that means working on my gut health, detoxing, supporting it with the right things, getting the right kind of sleep. And when I say detoxing, I also mean working on the emotional, the physical, and the chemical. And the emotional is very hard to do. It takes the longest time. You have to think about people who you need to forgive, people who have done things to you that you need to let go, and then work on those feelings inside because they fester. So the detox portion is extremely important, and it took the longest time. And then along with the upper cervical chiropractic, I say do that along with Raindrop because when he adjusts you, it's helping with nerve flow and structural alignment. Regular chiropractors deal with general pain management and structural alignment. And so for those of us who have autoimmunes or who have lesions in the brain, Lyme disease too, you have things going on up in the brain that need to detox and they can't get out of your skull. They need to go along the detox pathways. So that means the lymph nodes, the liver, the kidneys. And so you want to do those things that support those pathways so that you can properly detox. Because when you can reduce that inflammation with upper cervical and the raindrop, then it allows your body to get rid of the viral overload and it allows your immune system to start taking over the fight again. So it's a three-pronged approach. Anyway, so that's what I've done. It took me 4 years total to get my cognitive back, and then I was able to start working again. And I've been doing some experiments on myself where I've let go of some of those modalities just to see what happens, and I have regressed. And so I know that it's not a remission issue, it's a balance issue. I've gone without Raindrop for almost a year, and I just started back up with Deanna. And I can definitely tell a difference in my brain afterwards. It's like there's a cooling effect and a relief of some sort. I don't know how quite to explain it, but the the pressure headaches, the neural headaches, the things that only morphine touches are gone. I don't know quite how to articulate all of it, but I do know that these are two important things for folks who have, especially CNS, central nervous system autoimmunes. And I would highly encourage anybody to start doing those. And the trick is it's not that you do it every once in a while. But for those of us who have chronic conditions, these are necessary on a weekly basis. And like I said, was I taking two steps forward and one step back? I don't want to hinder progress. So, like you would take medicine on a daily basis. Well, it's important to take the things you read on a daily basis. It's correcting that gut health. It's reducing inflammation. It's providing antioxidants to your body. And along with that, take the other things that support gut health, the things that support your central nervous system and getting a viral overload out of your system. Medicine is only going to mess up your gut health. And these things have to work in concert with each other. So if the oils are bioidentical, if your body takes from it exactly what it needs, then it's going to do the work and it knows how to do it better than a scientist who's binding an active part of a molecule with a protein to get inside your blood system. Yeah, I encourage everybody to do Raindrop at least once a week. And then if you want to take a break after a year just to see what your progress is, do that. And I highly encourage people to be skeptical because this is how we learn things. But go for the Raindrop.